Welcome back. You here with Goldberg. Today we'll be talking about the curious case of Me Too and how it affects specific types of men. Obviously, some years back, Henry Cavill said, "Oh, I don't know if I can date because of this." Nonsensical. Obviously, no one accused him or brought him into the courtroom, at least not yet. That's because Henry Cavill is the fantasy for many women. On the flip side, other men are not so lucky. Briefly, let's talk about the Trump case. I know it was from a few weeks back, but the Democrats went in New York and they passed a law deliberately designed to go after him because it's nonsensical. Retroactively, you can pursue someone for an event that allegedly happened 3 decades ago. Even though Billie Jean's not my lover here, she was inconsistent. She was praising him and assaulting his character. Very perplexing. And the problem being, this is why I believe it's going to be repealed or struck down quite soon. You ask the question, if you at 18 were at a party, you clap cheeks with some chick, and then at 48, you're now the next Jeff Bezos, can she sue you because you happen to have money? Whereas in the past you didn't, but she sees an angle under this sort of legislation. Completely nonsensical and should not exist, but there's a very specific reason why it does. Is Trump an attractive guy? There's different opinions on that. A girl came in the comment section recently. She was like, "Oh, you dudes need to behave like Trump, be arrogant, and that's what gets us hot and heavy." I was like, "Oh, so you want to have sex with Trump?" Oh, no. What can you do? So let's proceed on from here. I think there's a lot of interesting material, and just recently some stuff came out. So hopefully we won't be opening too much of a can of worms like the Democrats did in New York. And I don't think they want to see Trump's worms. What's fascinating about the Me Too accusations is that they were typically leveled at normies or sub fives, not Chads, not Tyrones. You might remember Keith Raniere, Nexium, had this massive cult, was able to pound quite a lot of nice asses, but at what cost? 100+ years in prison, the end of his life. Even if someone brings up Kevin Spacey, he was always playing himself, that is, a degenerate creep, and they couldn't get a woman to accuse him. They had to resort to some gay cell. The Tango Maureen. That's pretty embarrassing. If you're going to go down and it happens from a dude, it's pretty much over for you. Others will point to Johnny Depp, although he played goofy characters, and no one actually believed he was guilty of that. It was a rare instance in which women took the side of the man because they found him attractive, and it was like, she's probably making it up. So then you come to Cosby, the somewhat goofy, socially conservative television father. And it's more credible, as much as it was prosecutorial misconduct, they tried to do him in, but it doesn't matter. That was more credible that he would be a creep, a dirty old man taking advantage of his position, but they didn't drag in Tyson Beckford or even Jamie Foxx, who's kind of goofy himself, but still, compared to Cosby, he's on a higher level. So what do you make of that? Guys who are not expected to have access to certain women have to use these kind of conniving methods are more credible as predators than very attractive dudes like Cavill or Chris Hemsworth, but not his brothers. There's kind of a different rating there. And please don't give me the Jonathan Majors as a Tyrone. He's been indicted, whether it'll go anywhere. By the way, this dude, I actually used to work with a guy who had a very similar face, which is to say, his future doctor engineer brain is too large, so it's almost like a perpetual state of looking as though he's constipated. Maybe God, he messed up, he put too much Bisquick human, and so the dude has the weird physiognomy. But we'll have to figure out how that's going to proceed. But this is definitely not a Tyrone. Plus, he was dressing up like a dude and doing all this bi stuff. So much easier target. Certainly not Tyson Beckford. Or who was another good example? Maybe that one guy was on The Bachelor a couple years back that he was going for the 39-year-old chick. It was her last chance. I think he was a football player. No, it is typically a more vulnerable dude based upon his physical appearance, if we're all honest. Oh, that's brutal. Moving on to Care Bears. This is Dove Charney. He was the head of American Apparel. Now, he didn't go to jail, but he was forced out of his company. You just take a look at the face, it's pretty much over. That's going to happen. She has better options in the background than he does. Sad to say. But once more, entrepreneur, builds something up from scratch. He's still more vulnerable because he has that normie, creepy look to him as opposed to a good looking guy. People say, oh, yeah, obviously, folks would throw themselves, women would want him, men would want him, that kind of thing. So it is a very strange state of affairs. Harvey Weinstein, about a 1.5 out of 10. He did the classic method of the studio executive, which is to use his power to get these women. Many of them, once they didn't achieve the career they wanted or it started to go into decline, they said, oh, here's an opportunity, pound me to him. He was an idiot. Polanski's actually pretty intelligent. By the way, Polanski had a smoking hot wife that I think Charles Manson killed. But when he was in trouble, he said, oh, I'm getting out of the United States. What Weinstein should have done is ran to like China or Russia, defected there, and waited to see, because if he got 20 years in absentia, he could still live a high life in those countries without being extradited, instead of basically this is the end because no Democrat's going to touch it and pardon him, so he's more or less screwed. Who knows? Maybe if they get Cuomo the homo back in there, he might do it just because he's now angry at the DNC leadership. But a very brutal state of affairs. I'm not in favor of what he did. I'm just saying that is the model, and he was probably so arrogant he believed he would be untouchable because of his prominence and his power and money. Let's not forget Moshe Katsav, member of the Likud party, an Iranian Care Bear, probably 3 out of 10 by their standards. He was president of Eretz Israel from 2000 to 2007, was accused by a number of women, and ended up getting nearly a decade in prison. Towards the end, they let him out and said, you have to be a good boy, stay at home, study the Torah every day. Very bizarre, because I'm not sure the Torah is the most ideal source of right and wrong. But by the way, if you guys are into running game, don't do it in Care Bear Land. They have some of the most feminist laws on the planet. Sorry, unless you're a female Christian journalist, you get sniped in the head, then they'll just cover it up. No big deal. Yeah, we're all good, right? This one is exceptionally brutal. Danny Masterson is looking at probably 2 decades in prison unless he can miraculously get the charges reversed. He's basically a normie, decent looking, but 5'10". Now, at the same time as this trial is proceeding, once more, Ashton Kutcher, better looking dude, taller, did not get accused because, oh, it's Ashton Kutcher. Armie Hammer, who's 6'5" and more in the Chad Light to Chad category, they dropped the charges on him, even though he was accused. I'm pretty certain that Aziz Ansari, if that woman had better ducks in a row, he would have gone down for something serious too, because he looks like a subhuman. That's why he married, I think, a Dutch woman or some other made-up country in Europe, because he doesn't want his kids to be subhuman like he is, or at least less so. So this is very brutal when you consider how looks affect not just your level of success in life, but in this case, it's more believable that you would be a pervert if you are a normie or below than if you are a Chad or a Stacy. So people make excuses for those who are attractive well before they'll do it for someone who is physically unappealing. And brings us to one final point. I'm not going to go too much in depth, but I heard it in another video, and it wouldn't really surprise me too much. The working theory is that perhaps in some cases, women have postpartum depression because they realize, oh snap, I reproduced with an oofy doofy or a sub-5. My kids are not going to have the same benefits as I assumed. Think about the couples where it's an Asian female and a Roosh V following bald cell ortho bro. But she sees her son, turns out more on the Asian side, and resents him. Real phenomenon, by the way, not being made up. Or other instances, she assumed the outcome was going to be Patrick Mahomes, and it's instead Jackson Mahomes. That's brutal. So at times, and we're not even scratching the surface. This is why I find it so fascinating. I've written some stuff. I've read at least one book that I believe a person read mine. Of course, they can never admit it. But we are not quite there yet. Gene editing, if that comes, artificial wombs, all these phenomenons, it's really going to bring out how people look at various traits and their benefits. If you have the choice, would you want your kids to have green blue eyes or brown or gray, yellow? Do you want your kids to be tall or short? Do you want your kids to have a certain ethnicity or not? This is going to be truly a Pandora's box. I hope I live long enough to see it. I'm not like one of those people that constantly wants to retreat, running and screaming to tradition whenever they can't understand what's in front of them. But let me know what you think. And I'm not endorsing the postpartum idea, but it's also not one that I am ready to toss in the bin bag because we are, like I said, so much we try to apply in terms of ideals and equality and feel good notions and vibes, but perhaps a lot more than we actually want to admit is biologically determined.